Welcome to the Living Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Preston M. Smith. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Living Artist Podcast. I'm Preston M. Smith, at PMS Artwork everywhere on internet land and socials. I want to thank you for landing on this podcast. Whether you're a professional artist, just getting started in the art world, a collector of art, or just consider yourself a creative person, this podcast has something for you. I like to think of it as a fun way to rant and talk to other creative people about living the life of an artist, surviving and getting ahead in the art world, and enjoying your life. But most importantly, not waiting until you're dead to make it happen. All right, let's get started. Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and even earn money, all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then, you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify, as well as Q&A polls to take conversations with your fans to the next level. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free with no catch. I'm personally getting a lot out of Spotify for Podcasters, and I highly recommend you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
Well, this music can only mean one thing. Hi, everybody. You're listening to Tony Robbins. And I'd like to welcome you back to...
Actually, excuse me. It's actually I who's supposed to be talking to you today with this music and hypertrophy and hormesis and muscular development and things of this nature. It is I, the governor, who should be bringing to you this message.
Don't listen to him, everybody. Listen to me, Tony Robbins. I'm here to tell you a little bit about forget about it.
Ha ha! I knew you didn't have what it took to deliver this message to you today. That's why I, the governor, I'm back to talk to you about growth and hormesis and hypertrophy. And to say to you, if the city will not feel a pothole, you go out with your bare hands and you feel the pothole yourself. If you do not believe me, just look it up, give it a Google, and you'll see that I just feel a pothole in the cities of Los Angeles with my bare hands. What happened to the music? Okay, that's it for me. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
Welcome back to a very special episode of the Living Artist Podcast, where nothing happens. Not a damn thing. My apologies to the governor and Tony Robbins, but, we're going to be talking about some stuff that is just up their alley, and I thought who better to start it out with than T-Rob and the governor. And by the way, who would win in a fight between the two of them? Tony Robbins is like 6'7", and Arnold is an ex-action star, bodybuilder, badass. I think Arnold probably would take him, but you never know. You never know. So what are we doing here today? That's a good question. Today, well, we're going to be talking a little bit about what the governor was saying at the beginning and Tony Robbins about hormesis and hypertrophy and homeostasis, all the H's basically. We're going to talk about the triple H. We're not actually going to be going into too much of the science of it, but really just taking what I've been listening to and learning a lot about recently when I've been talking about building my body back up and recovering from my ankle injury and the chronic pain stuff. I've been listening to a lot of, leading cutting edge science on all this stuff. And it was interesting as I was listening to it because I was like, a lot of this stuff actually applies to life as well and applies to your art and what you're trying to do with your art as far as getting it out into the world and maybe becoming a full-time professional artist who is like kicking ass and, selling your work to a bunch of collectors and just doing really well all around. A lot of these same things apply. So we're going to talk a little bit about the process, very little, because I don't want to anger any scientists out there or athletic coaches or physical therapists or, you name it. But we are going to talk a tiny bit about it just so you get an idea. And then we're going to transition into saying how these kind of same rules apply to growth in really any industry or any area of development. So here we go. So what are we talking about when we talk about the triple H's? Well, homeostasis, we're really not going to talk about too much. That's kind of more about how the body establishes an equilibrium, but it does apply a little bit. But we're going to talk more about like hypertrophy, which is basically muscular cell growth and how your muscles get larger from working out and straining them and stressing them. And then hormesis is kind of a healthy state of stress, a little low dose level of stress that kind of pushes the body to grow and to establish a new baseline, really. It's good for you. It's good for everything. Without these types of stressors, without a little bit of manageable stress, we wouldn't have any growth in general in our bodies and beyond. I was actually listening to a podcast on the Andrew Huberman Lab podcast, which is great. Highly recommend it. And he had a sleep expert on there, but they were also talking about different stress studies and things like that. And they actually said that people who had healthy levels of stress actually lived longer. And if you had no stress at all in your life, which I don't know how that's possible, but let's just say you're at home, you're not doing much, you don't have to make money, you don't have a lot of familial stress, you don't have, a lot of that stuff. You're having all your food delivered to you, you're having everything on Amazon delivered to you, you're really not getting out into the world and pushing yourself at all. You actually will not live as long as the people who are getting healthy levels of stress, which is interesting. And that kind of applies to what I'm talking about with hormesis too. The body actually has developed to kind of need and thrive on a certain amount of stress for growth. So that's hormesis. That is a very gross simplification of what it is, but I told you I'm not going to go into it in detail. I would highly recommend listening to Huberman Labs podcast if you're interested in science at all and how you can figure out your body and how to hack certain systems in the body, things like that. I highly recommend that. If you want to get more information on things like this, you can also listen to Peter Attia and people like that. Ron DePatrick is great as well. But what I'm really wanting to talk about is how we can take this idea and run with it where it comes to growth as an artist and in your artistic career, because the same rules apply. I remember David Bowie being interviewed many times and talking about how if you're comfortable, nothing's happening. You need to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. Get to the place where, like if you're wading in the water where your feet kind of just start not being able to touch the ground, that's where you're starting to get into some exciting realm of creativity. And it's where you're pushing your body to expand, pushing your creativity to expand as well. So I think that's really important. And I think you can apply it to anything. You can apply it to if you have stagnation in your gallery game, like getting into shows, if you want to be getting into shows. Well, if you're not getting out there, if you're not putting yourself into uncomfortable situations where you're meeting new people or you're meeting gallery owners or you're meeting collectors, none of this stuff is going to happen. So you can't play it safe and just be sitting at home all the time and expect all this to happen. Yes, you can email galleries and you can put your stuff out there. That is also another way of being uncomfortable. But if you're just going to sit around and do nothing and maybe post on social media and expect things to come to you, it's not going to happen. So let's just start to think about this whole idea of hormesis and maybe how you can apply that to your artistic career. It's like artistic or career hormesis. How can you apply this? Hopefully you get the concept here. It's like if you're not stressing your muscles, if you're not working out these muscles and tearing the muscle fibers and having them rebuild, stimulating these muscular cellular growth with hypertrophy, you're not going to get bigger. You're not going to get stronger. Just like with your bones and the strength of your bones as you get older, now they're starting to realize that like osteoporosis, how they used to, just prescribe like all these calcium supplements and pills and how nobody really got better. It's because they didn't fully understand that you actually had to load the bones. The bones need to be loaded and stressed to a level so they actually get stronger. And they're, like you do resistance training or you do strength training, things like that. That's what helps your bones to get stronger by loading them. And also it helps you to age slower and it helps your body to be more resilient. So hopefully you kind of get this idea. It's like if you don't stress your engagement as an artist, if you don't stress your creative abilities, if you're going out there and you're just painting or sculpting or, drawing the same thing that you always draw or sculpt or paint, That's fine. You might be able to, really hone in on that aspect of it and almost perfect that part, but you're really not going to grow and find new techniques and stuff. I know a lot of times when I'm in the studio and I'm having troubles, or I'm like not being inspired, or painting's not working, and I just force myself to stick with it and I start trying some new things or new techniques, I always go like, oh man, this didn't work. This did work. Oh, look, let's explore this a little bit more. This would have never happened if I didn't push myself out of my comfort zone. Now I realize that there's something to this technique or to this movement or to this color or to this composition or whatever. There's something to it that I can then explore and build off of. And so many great things come out of that. And that would have never happened if I hadn't pushed myself out of my comfort zone a little bit. You can do this by working with new materials. If you haven't worked with resin, work with resin. If you haven't worked with acrylics and you're an oil painter, work with acrylics. If you haven't worked with oils and you're an acrylic painter, work with oils. If you haven't tried certain glazes, if you haven't tried working on wood, if you haven't tried, assemblage, if you haven't tried like finding objects and putting them together and sculpting things, if you haven't done any of these things, maybe it's time to try them, because you might find that you're not as limited as you think, or you might find an area of creativity that you never knew existed that you can explore, which is great. And then you might find your own little niche or another little niche that actually makes your career take off. These are little important creative stressors that could open up a whole new window for you. Same thing with galleries. Let's say you're a person who's a little bit of a wallflower, or you're an introvert. Maybe it's time for you to start giving yourself a little pep talk to get out there, go to galleries, engage with people, talk with people, approach a gallery owner, approach collectors. If you're in a gallery and you don't talk to anybody who comes by, maybe it's time to start talking to people, just to exercise those muscles. Maybe it's time to start passing out business cards. Maybe it's time to start doing some other techniques. Maybe it's not just standing around your work. Maybe it's just going out and meeting other artists and talking to them and figuring out what works for them. Any kind of like social or creative stressor like this, or career stressor, is going to push you outside of your boundaries, and it's going to cause growth, right? You're going to start to go, oh, this worked, and I'm going to start exploring this more. And then your body, the organism, starts getting stronger, just like the hypertrophy. After straining your muscles are going to grow. The muscle cells are going to expand and grow. You are going to grow as an artist. So I think that's really important. If you haven't reached out to any grant programs and you want to get into a grant program, well, no time like the present. Just get out there, figure out how to do it. There's so much information out there. Just Google how to put together a grant proposal, where to do that, and just start doing it. Hit the ground running. Maybe it's that you need to get your social media game down. Maybe you're afraid to engage, or you just do the bare minimum. You put a post out there and you just, oh, this is something I'm working on, work in progress, blah, blah, blah. But you haven't really figured out your hashtag game, or you really haven't figured out how to talk about your work or how to engage with people. Maybe you need to start doing some reels. Maybe you've never done that. Maybe you're also an introvert when it comes to that. Maybe you're like, oh, people don't need to know about my artistic process, or they don't need to know what goes on in my studio behind the scenes. Well, maybe they don't. Maybe they do. Maybe that's what's holding you back. Maybe it's time to start going, let's turn the camera on myself. Let's get into a comfortable environment where somebody I trust is filming me, or I'm filming myself, and just start playing around with the camera, start talking to it. Find a topic you want to talk about, or find an area of the studio that you want to highlight to people, or a technique you want to highlight, and just start talking about that on camera. Take little baby steps. I know people who have done this. I've seen their growth on social media. I've seen them go from posting like once a week to doing reels and stories and engaging and talking with their audience and doing giveaways and getting people over to their newsletters and so on and so forth. It is really impressive to see that growth, but it starts with the first step. It starts with stressing the body a little bit, with stressing the organism, stressing your boundaries as an artist a little bit. And once you do that, once you get outside of those boundaries a little bit, you're going to be surprised, I think, at what you really are capable of doing. And it's going to be exciting. And all of a sudden you're going to be, well, yeah, I did this. What if I do this? What if I do this? What if I do this? You're going to keep upping your game. Now, you don't have to keep upping your game, but you should be trying to stress yourself in different ways. You should be trying to put some sort of uncomfortable stress on your creativity. You should be trying to put some uncomfortable stress on your business approach. You should be putting a little bit of stress on your social media and marketing approach. You should be doing this in all levels. It doesn't have to be all at once. You can pick one, like this week or this month, I'm going to put some stress on this area. And then the next month or the next week, I'll start focusing on another one. And then you just start stacking up little wins. You start to do this over and over again. Like let's say you 10x what you were doing in the past, and you're not going to hit every one of those things. Let's say you do 10 things and you were doing 0 before. You're not going to hit on all 10, but you might hit on 2. And then you might hit on 2 other ones the next week in another area. So at the end of that month, maybe you've done 40 things that you were not doing in the past, and maybe you have accomplished 8 of those. That's huge. And then that has a cumulative effect over time as you grow, as you progress, and you're going to look back after a year or 6 months and go like, damn, look what I accomplished. This is amazing. So that's really what I want to impress upon you today and talk about. A lot of these things that are happening in the body on like a microscopic or quantum level, a lot of these little things that are happening that you can't see with the naked eye that are happening in the body or in the world or in the universe also apply on like the macro level for you. It's like what's happening with my own personal environment, what's happening with my artistic career, what's happening with my creative process. It's very similar. There's always a little parallel between these types of mechanisms. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Hopefully it's something that has sparked some interest or sparked, an idea for some action, something that you can put into action in the coming weeks or months. I would just say, don't wait. If it's exciting, if it's something that's exciting you, it's something that's making you feel a little nervous, I could do this, but I don't know. Just take some action. Do it today. Don't wait. Just start now and you will impress yourself. And I think you will start this Hormetic process. Thanks for bearing with me with the science and all of the metaphors here with physiology. I think there are very strong metaphors and parallels between these two elements. So thanks for listening, everybody. And I've got a good interview coming up next week, so stay tuned for that. And other than that, hope you have a great week. Hope you have a creative week. Keep pushing yourself. Keep stressing that body on a healthy level. And I think you really will achieve the growth that you're looking for as an artist. Until next time, be good to yourself and be good to everybody else out there. Bye-bye.
Well, I think he's gone, everybody. It's a perfect opportunity to talk to you all about...
I was never really gone. I've been here the whole time. I was just around the corner feeling a pothole with my bare hands. You can never get rid of me. I am the governor.
Son of a bitch!
This has been the Living Artist Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I just want you to know that I appreciate you being here, and I'm grateful to be in your ears. Your art and creative life on this planet is meaningful, so thank you for sharing it with me. If you like this podcast, whatever platform you're listening to it on, please subscribe and share it with your friends. You can also leave me a positive review to show your support. This helps me to reach more people with the algorithmic magic and keep the show going strong. If you want to see more of what I do and check out the art that I create, you can visit my website at www.pmsartwork.com or follow me on social media everywhere at PMS Artwork. That's it for now. See you back here next time.